RamDass passed, and yet he was a big proponent on how to die, how to live and how to die. He came into the world as Richard Albert, and he was a graduate of Harvard and then a professor of Harvard, and then he became a pioneer for the LSD experience. It kind of made him move into a new direction because it wasn't well accepted at that time. I don't think it's well accepted now, really. But he still had questions, and he went to India and he got a guru and he continued his journey. But the LSD, it seems to me, sort of blew open the doors of his mind, and then the devotion to his divinity blew open the doors of his heart. And so he became this immaculate open channel, and I don't think his doors have ever shut. And even in death, he's still very alive and well. And he taught Be Here Now. That was one of the names of his books, was Be Here Now. And he talked about like not being in anticipation, not being in the past or in the future, but just really entertaining this present moment, which is such a beautiful teaching. And it's a practice, and it's a practice that we all get to take part in. And he says that there are two beings within each of us, and one being is something that will live forever, and one is that which will die. And we have to entertain and connect ourselves and recognize ourselves as the eternal light that dwells within us. And he calls it the soul. If you haven't ever studied with him, he has many books and many tapes, like I said, and you can continue to study with him. When I first started studying with him, I was in California, and I got all of his books out of the library, and I sat in the tub and I listened to all his tapes, and I was so overwhelmed with the beauty of his teaching because he is really accessible, he's funny, and deep. And I was like, this is my teacher. And then I found out that he had had a stroke, and I remember just weeping in the same way that I wept when I've heard other people who have been such great teachers pass. And he hadn't passed it, but he was still here. But one time when I was struggling with something, I was doing a show in Los Angeles, and it was total. And it was problems for me. It was drama. It was a lot of drama going on. And so I crashed 2 cars during this production. I crashed my car, and then I crashed the rental car. Like, it was bad. It was a bit of ego involved. So I wrote to him, and I was like, you need to help me. I feel like I'm doing a show for my mom, and it's for breast cancer, and it's not going well at all. And I feel like I just need to be done with it. This is the show that actually brought me to Chicago, funny enough. It's called Booby Trap, the very best show in town. So he wrote me a note back, and he said, you just need to do whatever brings you peace. And if it doesn't bring you peace, then find someone else to do your part, and then go about finding what will heal you. And by heal, I mean whatever brings you closer to God. And I held on to that interpretation of that idea of what is healing is whatever brings you closer to God. And when I found out that he passed, I remember thinking like, oh, when you die, you're closer to God. So he just experienced a great healing. So we get to think about death as not a failure, but as an extension. So RamDass, he taught also a lot about non-attachment. He invited us to identify not with the passing clouds, but with the sky. And this awareness of identifying with the sky in harmony with the clouds, invites us into this state of a calm mind, a peaceful mind. And he says the mind is a tool, but it's not a trap. But we can get trapped in the mind if we overthink. But when the mind is settled down, we can have clarity. So there's a story about Buddha who wanted a glass of water, and he sent one of his down to the lake to get a glass of water for him. And his devotee came back and said, there's so many people kicking around the water, so much silt in the water, like I can't get a clear glass for you. And he says, okay. So a half hour goes by, and Buddha sends his devotee back down to the water, and he comes back, and he says, oh, this time nobody was there, and the water was nice and calm and placid, and so I was able to bring you a clear glass of water. And he said, what needed to happen for this clear glass of water? And the devotee was like, I don't know what. And he's like, nothing. You just had to let it be. And so for us, when we decide to be the sky instead of the clouds, most of the time our role is to let it be. Just let it pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. But we decide to wrap ourselves in these clouds, these current events, and make them who we are, as opposed to the sky that can hold it all. Truth waits for eyes unclouded by longing. Truth waits for eyes unclouded by longing. So to get to this deeper truth, we're asked to let go of all of our longing so that we can receive this truth. Longing is like that static on the line. It's like that confusion in the water. But we can heal our longing. In the law of attraction, we're groomed for longing, like get more, figure out what you want. But here it's saying, like, don't do that. It's saying, like, see if you can let go of even the longing. If you can heal that hunger within you, then we might have a better chance of healing world hunger. I know that sounds kind of radical, but just sit with it for a little while. Because when we heal that hunger within us, it's a letting go of that awkward wanting and wanting and wanting. And this disease of wanting and longing, it actually can sometimes breed starvation. Because we're so immersed in what's yet to be that we never really fully digest what is. So in this teaching, we're asked to really digest what is. And what should we be hungry for anyhow? You know what I mean? Like, look at us. Look where we're at. Look who we are. We've like won the cosmic lottery to be here. And hunger is not even a thing that needs to be in our vocabulary. We've been given so much. And you could ask that question again, like, what should we hunger for? At this stage of the game, we should only hunger for God. That should be the thing that we hunger for. And RamDass really hungered for God. Like, he kept asking the questions and finding the gurus and going to the places that he needed to go in order to get his spiritual food. When we hunger for God, God serves a magnificent meal on a very clean table. The clean table is our mind. And we are called to clear the table of all the crumbs of longing and desire and wanting. And really clear off all of those things so that this grace can be delivered to us. And when we long for things, it's like begging to God with our mouth full. And I say that again, but I need to remember that. Because that dissatisfaction lives in my bones. And it's like, what am I wanting for? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Like, I really want to feel like what it would be like to be without that loyal companion of longing. Surrendering everything to God is not a popular invitation. Because we think like, like God? Everything to God? Like, God's, not totally trustworthy. And besides, like, God also comes with that idea of, like, there's going to be a sacrifice. There's going to be some deprivation involved here. Like, I smell deprivation. I'm not showing up to the table. Instead, we want to work our own angles and win friends and influence people and think we grow rich and all of these other very beautiful thought systems. But those things will not work if we don't put God first. Like, we just have to have our spiritual agenda in a priority, which is seek first God, and then everything else is given. So, we could go on about our getting. We've done this. We're masters at getting. We've mastered the law of attraction, let's just say that. You've got the parking space, the guy, the shoes, and then you lost them, and got them again, and you lost them. Like, we know how that works. But what would it be like if we really rested in God? The ego screams to us about accusations of scarcity and sacrifice that are going to be made for us if we go this way, right? And then when we hear those accusations, we sort of look towards our belongings, like, like we have to keep ourselves safe, and we really kind of consider our well-being on where we end up on the scale of the haves or have-nots. And then our belongings determine that. And this state of thinking prevents us from recognizing that we belong to each other. That's our belongings. Not all these toys and trinkets and treasures, they really mean nothing. As we've seen, they come and go 1,000 times. But those relationships, A Course in Miracles says the same thing. A Course in Miracles says that there's no scarcity in God. There's no scarcity in God. Guarantees a happy ending. But we get to decide where we want to put our focus on. We want to place it on lack and limitation, suffering, and longing, or do we want to place it on belonging? Rumi has this great quote that says, the water doesn't fear the fire. The water doesn't fear the fire. Love doesn't fear fear. Like, love is so immense that it takes fear and suffering, swallows it whole, redigests it, and gives it a holy name. And we go, oh, we realize that's what we were afraid of? So we get to be that holy well, that wellspring that has so much water to give that, like, we don't have to worry about lack or limitation or suffering. Love is big enough to transform and push fear into submission and remission. That's how big love is. And we don't have to fear belonging, even though many of us do fear belonging. When we all first came to this church, we were like, You jumped in. Well, you came with me. But when you come to anything new, you're like, oh, like, what's going to happen? This is a universal fear that we all have. Here, we get to experience belonging, and we get to know that these things will come and go, and yet we get to anchor into the moment, into the present. A Course in Miracles helps us to practice the present, and in the present, that's where we get the feast of God. It already is. And when we really practice the present, and you can practice it wherever you are, whoever you're with, you can just practice. I'm right here. I'm here now with these people. There really wasn't much effort to get me here. Some of us took showers, some of us didn't. We drove, we walked, we came. Some people set up chairs, that like brushed our teeth, but these are like the normal things you have to do anyhow. And then we got here, and now we're here talking about God. And this is a beautiful moment to be in. If we really allow ourselves to be in this moment. Like, this is a beautiful moment. And each moment can be as beautiful as this moment if we show up to it. To be free from all of the conflictions and the confines and the conditionings of our world, and just experience humanity in all of its tapestry. There's something so very beautiful about that, and intimate. When we think of the word intimacy, it's into me I see. So when I'm looking at you, I'm seeing me. But if I don't look at you and I'm so blocked and I'm so worried about the future or the past, I get to miss this Holy Communion. So we don't want to do that. Have you ever let somebody fully see you? Have you ever allowed yourself to be fully seen? Have you ever taken the time to fully see someone? It's such a gift. And all of this longing and all of this getting is addictive. It breeds more of that longing. Longing breeds longing. Addictions are addictive. Well, and it sounds insane, but when we decide to let go, when we surrender, when we shed, when we slip out of the confines of these illusions, what we actually get is God. And it's funny to think that when we let go, we get God. When we shed, when we surrender, when we strip down, we get God. Well, why is that? Because God can't be shed or stripped away or surrendered. You can't strip God from you. God is your breath. And so whatever you're stripping and surrendering, that's not God. If it can be stripped, it's not God. And so if you're stripping, surrendering, and you're shedding, you're getting closer to the bone of your essence. And that's really what you want to do. That's what I want to do. As we offer everything up to God, you can do this experiment yourself. As you offer everything up to your divine will offer everything up for you. God rolls out the red carpet for you. Has done it a million times before, will do it a million times again. This is the sure thing. But we don't always do this because God gets bad PR, you know? And also, like, our impatience and our addiction to seeing what's not there is not very helpful either. So, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you had a problem and you go to God and you're like, God, I have this problem, and God's like, all is well, your good is at hand. You're, no, it's not. And you're like, no, I got this problem, you know? It's like, oh, well, your good is at hand. And you're like, no. And you're like, I'm looking around, and you go a couple rounds. You know, and you go a lot of rounds, sometimes a lot of years, where you're like, God, what's up? And then one day, like, you get smacked in the head, and you go, oh my God, that thing that I thought was a problem was a blessing, and my good is at hand. Like, I didn't have a problem. That was a solution in disguise. And it helped me to evolve into a spiritual warrior, you know, so I really knew that God was with me, and I just didn't see it the way that God sees it, and it's sort of amazing. It's pretty amazing. Has that ever happened to you? That's happened to me, where I really thought that a problem was a problem, and then I got to see it as a solution. I remember when we went through cancer. You know, I saw it as a big-ass problem, you know? You know, I remember when I went through cancer. You know, I thought that was a big-ass problem. Sorry about the big-ass problem thing. I had to take the girl out of Jersey, man. But it's amazing. God is amazing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. We've all been that nasty old wretch. You know what a wretch is? A wretch is actually, if you look it up in the dictionary, a wretch is a person who's unhappy, who is dissatisfied with the situation. I've been that wretch, like, come on, God, what's going on? We get to be healed from that illusion of sickness. That's never the truth. It's never been the truth. We get to heal our own minds and get in line with God. And what do we get to see? What does the wretch get to see? The wretch gets to see that God is good, that God supplies, that all is well, that there's no lack in God. You know, that this is the truth and the whole truth, always has been, always will be. So that's my direction this year. A couple of years ago, we took the direction of, I'm not doing anything I can't do in peace. And I thought that was a really good direction. Like, I really took that to heart. And in doing that, a lot of things shifted in my experience and in the community a little bit. And so I think this year is like, let's heal our addiction to longing. Let's heal our addiction to wanting. Let's surrender the need for more so we can celebrate the abundance that is without the clouds of longing, so that we can root into our belonging to this present moment. This moment that we have in peace, it's fleeting. I hate to say that, but 41 mass murders happened in our country this past year. That's a lot of murdering going on. So this is precious. This moment of life is very, very precious. If we're not in this precious moment, then we're murdering the moment ourselves. And we don't want to do that. When I told Will that I wanted to give up my own hunger this year, I know this isn't an easy thing to do. Because I said to him, like, this year I'm giving up my own hunger, but first I have to eat something. I went out to eat 2 Cinnabons this morning, just this morning. So I know that this is work in progress, and it's subtle. This wanting, this longing, this will slip in a lot of different ways. Any time that we are rolling our eyes, or in judgment about what is, or we're not in supreme happiness for what is, we're working in the lack and the longing. And so imagine if you could shift that awareness into the having and the appreciation. That's a simple shift, but it's the maintaining of it that's going to be the real work, to really maintain it. With everyone in all corners, with your friends, with your families, with how you are, with yourself. To really know that you are divinely perfect in this moment, that you are preordained for this moment, that what you bring to this moment is so important. And if you don't pay attention to this moment, then something is going to be majorly missing. Safety comes from belonging. Belonging is a need that we all have. We all need to belong. It's our nature to recognize that we're responsible for caring for each other. RamDass says that we're all walking each other home. The difference between longing and belonging is that longing is empty. It's an unmet need. And belonging is completion. It's like we complete something and we have this acceptance around it. The sense of belonging is a very basic need, and it's actually right up there with like water and like shelter and warmth. And when you feel like you belong to something, you actually feel warmth and shelter. You feel safe. And we each are able to help each other feel that way. To remember that we belong to each other is what we're designed for. And when we exclude and when we attack and when we judge each other or ourselves, we can be sure that something radical has gone wrong. It's not natural for us to do that. Even if everybody else on the school bus is doing it, that's not our natural way of being. And we can stop accepting that as natural. RamDass invites us to take this journey of merging back to God, where we are spirits dancing in form, awakening more and more to the realization that this is just a playful dance with God. Last week I heard myself say, or maybe it was the other week, the week before, that this is just the facade for God. And RamDass says that as you meet anyone, remember that they are just God in drag.